So I took a few weeks off. I felt like I was beginning to be robotic, and I'm coming back with lots of weird and interesting things. I've been reading and researching, like always, falling down rabbit holes. I love being someplace unexpected and sitting there going, how did all of this happen? And today we are talking about the snow globe. I know you're probably thinking, Danielle, the snow globe? But of course, the story of this little object, this tiny glass world, is so weird and so beautiful and deeply connected to what I do here. By the end of the video, I hope that you'll see it too. Here's what pulled me in. Erwin Pertzy III, the man who runs the original snow globe factory today, the factory that has been making snow globes by hand since 1900. His company's slogan is, each piece is as unique as a snowflake. And that's literally my entire business. I preserve real snowflakes, actual, individual, one-of-a-kind snowflakes, each one caught in the exact moment it was most itself. So when I saw the slogan, I felt like the universe was tapping me on the shoulder. And so I continued to read, and the whole history just unraveled. It goes from surgical instrument mechanic to baby food to Orson Welles. And I'm so excited to tell you because I know my snowflake people, that's you, will deeply appreciate it. So it's the year 1900, Austria. And if you know anything about Austria in the turn of the 20th century, you know it was this extraordinary area. It was buzzing with art and science and ideas. The whole world felt like it was cracking open into the modern age. And in the 17th district, there is a man named Erwin Pertzy. He's a surgical instrument mechanic. He makes tools for surgeons, and he is, by all accounts, a tinkerer. The kind of guy who takes things apart to see how they work and can't help but trying to make them better. A local surgeon came to him with a problem. The light bulb had just been invented, and surgeons saw an opportunity and wanted to use these new electric lights in the operating rooms. But the bulbs were not bright enough. At least not bright enough to actually see what you're doing in surgery. So the surgeon says to Pertzy, hey, can you figure out how to make this brighter? There was this old trick that shoemakers used. They called it Schusterkugel, and that translates to shoemaker's ball. What they would do is fill a glass globe with water, set it in front of a candle, and the water-filled glass would act like a lens, concentrating and magnifying the light. Shoemakers used it to see tiny stitches more clearly. Pertzy thought, well, that's basically a magnifier. Let's try it in front of a light bulb. He filled a glass globe with water, put it in front of the bulb, and it worked. Kind of. The problem was the concentration of light into one sharp focus beam. It's great for shoemakers working on a single stitch, but terrible for a surgeon who needs even light across a whole operating field. So Pertzy starts experimenting. He adds metal flakes to the water. The idea is that if the flakes are floating around in there, they'll scatter the light and spread it more evenly. Except the metal flakes are far too heavy. They just sink straight to the bottom. This time he tries again. He uses semolina, that fine white grain that goes into baby food. His reason is simple. It's lighter, it'll float, and hopefully stay in suspension longer than metal. He puts the semolina in the water globe. He shakes it, and the semolina floats down through the water like snow. When he shook the globe, something in him must have stopped because he wasn't looking at an optical experiment anymore. He was looking at a tiny world, a little snowstorm happening right in front of his eyes. And I imagine he forgot for a moment what it was he was actually supposed to be doing. So this is the part I completely fell in love with because I think it's how the best things in the world happen. Someone is trying to solve a problem, they take a wrong turn, and they see something completely unexpected, and instead of throwing it out and going back to the drawing board, something in them wants to explore more. Pertzy stopped chasing the brighter light bulb. He had a friend who sold religious souvenirs near the church. It's a famous destination, the kind that draws thousands of individuals a year, and people always want to bring home a little keepsake, something to remember the moment by. So Pertzy made a tiny model of the church. He put it inside the globe, added his snow, and sealed it up. There it was, a tiny snowstorm over a little church, happening inside a glass ball you could hold in the palm of your hand. That was the first snow globe. He filed the patent in 1900 for what he called the Schinkugel, which means snowball. And by 1908, Emperor Franz Joseph I, the emperor of the whole Austro-Hungarian Empire, had personally honored Erwin Pertzy with an award for his invention from a failed light bulb experiment. I feel this in my heart. The thing I do, the preservation work, it didn't come from a predetermined plan. I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to preserve snowflakes for a living. It grew out of curiosity, out of obsession, out of asking, what if? Percy was just trying to solve a surgical problem and accidentally invented one of the most beloved objects in human history. I'll take that kind of accident any day. Now I have to be honest, because when I went looking for this story, it became far more complicated than I originally thought. The truth is that snow globes, or at least something very close to them, actually appeared before Erwin Percy at the Paris Universal Exposition of 1878. That's 22 years before Percy's patent. French glassware exhibitors were already showing glass balls filled with water, and when you shook them, white powder drifted through the liquid like a snowstorm in miniature. The official exposition report from 1878 documented them, so they definitely existed. And then at the 1889 Paris Exposition, the one where the Eiffel Tower made its debut, they were selling snow globes containing tiny Eiffel Tower figurines inside. Souvenirs, the opportunity to take a piece of Paris home with you. By 1879, at least 5 European companies were making them. So why do we call Percy the inventor? Because he was the one who actually filed the patent. He was the one who put the whole idea into a formal document. I think there's something incredibly poetic about the pre-Percy era. This idea that someone somewhere, we don't exactly know, had the same idea. They looked at a glass paperweight, filled it with water, put a little figure inside, and thought, what if it snowed in there? The human desire to make a tiny, perfect world enclosed in glass and watch the snow fall. For a long time, snow globes were a European thing. They were handmade, very expensive, and incredibly limited. It was the kind of thing you might pick up on your trip to Paris if you were fortunate enough to take one. And that changed in 1927 when a man in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, patented a production method that changed everything. His innovation sounded simple, but it was incredibly brilliant. His idea was to assemble the snow globe underwater. When you're making a snow globe, you need the globe to be completely full of liquid. No air bubbles, completely sealed, no gaps. If you're doing this in open air, you're fighting the whole process. You have to fill and then seal, and bubbles are almost inevitable. His insight was, what if we never let it touch the air at all? Assemble it while it's submerged. Seal it while it's submerged. The liquid is already there. No bubbles, completely airtight, and done. His first globe, a fish floating in seagrass. This method brought the price way down. Handcrafted European luxury items could now be made in volume. They were selling for as little as $1. And in today's market, that's about $19. Suddenly, everyone could have one. So that's the snow globe. If you made it this far, I genuinely thank you. Be sure to check out the new preserved snowflakes in the gallery, and I'll catch you in the next one.